Welcome back. I couldn't think of a more fitting place to start this particular session than to start this particular session putting your two biggest enemies after you get started and really begin this journey. Those are your two biggest enemies, stress and boredom. And you really need to have coping skills and a coping strategy and a plan in place to deal with those, because those are areas that cause people to fail. Boredom, number one, because it has an oxygen of opportunity. And then stress, number two, because you want to self soothe once you hyper stimulate yourself. So, starting out, this is kind of what we're looking for. This is the gold of recovery. It's freedom. And that's a picture of what freedom looks like: more awareness, more stability under pressure, more honest connections, less chaos, less secrecy, less drift. And ultimately, it's a life, your life, that's not being pushed around by moods or by urges or by desires. And the way that you get there, obviously, is through practice. This is the mental gym. This is the life gym, and you have to work out constantly so that you build the muscles, so that you can do the exercises that allow you to ultimately have freedom. And that comes from consistency and having wise limits. Limits is another way of saying boundary. So before I get started today, because we're going to talk about what do you do after a slip or a relapse. So something that often happens that causes people to relapse is when some pornography just happens to show up. And so you really need to have a strategy for what you're going to do when that happens. Because my bet is that when you decide that you don't want to do pornography anymore, that's going to happen a few times, because you've already set some seeds in place for that to happen. So that will happen. The good news is that eventually it stops happening. The bad news is that there are things that the addict does unconsciously that makes it just show up out of nowhere. And you'll learn what those things are, and you'll stop accidentally bumping into porn. But it does come, and I was shopping for a lawnmower one time, and accidentally text some information about the lawnmower, or a question about a lawnmower I was trying to buy. And then the next thing I know, somebody sent me some porn. My text went to the wrong number by accident, and then that's how the person chose to respond. I didn't confront him or tell him that, you're a porn addict and give him the business. I mean, somebody that did that to me, that tells me a lot. That tells me that he's an addict. That tells me a whole lot of stuff. That he would respond to an innocent, hey, when can I come over to see the lawnmower? And then I get porn back. So what do you do if it just shows up? Well, you do pretty much the same thing. This is not complicated. You do the same thing if somebody, if you woke up one morning and for whatever reason, there was a load of dog dirt sitting on your porch. What would you do with it? You'd remove it. However you'd remove it. Maybe you'd move it in an aggressive fashion. Maybe you would get gloves and napkins and all this kind of stuff. But the bottom line is you would remove it. And that's pretty much the same thing that you do when porn just shows up. You just hit the X and that's the end of it. You get rid of it the same way that you would get rid of any other kind of dirt. And early on, that's an area where people can make up cognitive distortions that actually hurt them. And the cognitive distortion, oh, I looked at porn, blah, 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 blah. I got to start all over again because I looked at porn. No, you don't have to start all over again, because that's what somebody else did has nothing to do with your journey. And the fact that you have to start all over again, that's part of a streak mentality. You didn't do anything wrong. So there's no reason in the world that you should penalize yourself in any way, shape, or form, even if it's psychological. Well, I got 45 days except for, come on. It's not like that. I mean, I don't know why you're counting the 45 days, but if you were counting the 45 days and somebody did send you something of that nature, that doesn't have anything to do with it. So if it just shows up, you deal with it the same way that you would deal with anything toxic or anything that was trash, which is to destroy it and get rid of it and move on. That's what you do. And just know that there'll be a day that one day that'll happen. That's a picture of, perhaps, of what you look like or what you eventually look like, and or a picture of what you really look like, but you can dress it up and make yourself look pretty so you don't look like that. And sometimes it's pictures like this that, they give us a little energy and fuel to pursue excellence, to pursue a more pure life than the toxic life of the pornography addiction. That helped me a little bit, because that's a scorched dude. Everything around him is scorched because of the fact that he's so scorched because of all the shock that he's doing to his system. So we talked about the autobiography in 5 chapters last time. It's just a picture. Chapter 5 is really the way that we live our lives. Start out in chapter 1. Everybody's got to get out of that hole sometime. And that's what this particular session is about. After you fell in the hole, what do you do? This is about avoiding the hole next time. But what do you do after you fell in the hole? And that's what we're talking about. The next time, as you walk down the street, do all of this stuff. Go down a different street. That's next time. But what do you do when you're actually in the hole? And the first thing that you do is remember the stop sign. You got to stop what you're doing. You've got to notice, I went too far. You got to stop. That's pretty much the first thing that you need to really remember. Maybe if you could get a keychain with a stop sign on it, and it could remind you. Because stopping is actually your best friend. Because one of the things that happens a lot of times is that you have an all or nothing type of mentality. So if you happen to make a mistake by some chance, you just throw yourself all in. Versus if you happen to make a mistake, just check yourself and stop and go the opposite way. The same thing that you would do if porn actually shows up. And one of the things we talked about last session, which is really it's one of your greatest simple tools that you can have, which is basically check in. And we've talked about it over and over again, that the addictive mentality, the way addicts act, the way addicts behave, it's all about toxically meeting needs. It's all about toxically creating comfort. And it's all about reacting and being random. That's what the addictive mindset does and creates. And so the recovered mindset is a deliberate mindset. It's a mindset that does things on purpose. It's a mindset that does things intentional, which is a little bit different. And one of the ways that you do things intentional is you check in with yourself. And one of the things that people do uh, when they are acting in their addiction, it is, as I said, random. So random, it has no plan to it. Random is you just react. Random, you just pull something out of a toolbox and just throw it up against the wall. Versus intentional, as this happened, this is the best practice and best response for this situation. And one of the things that happens is that in the addiction, people are vague and unspecific about how they feel. So therefore, they can't come up with a specific remedy for the situation. And by doing a check-in, it allows you to understand how you feel, what it is you really want, what it is you need, what it is you're thinking about, and what's going on in your relationships, so that you can come up with an elegant way to meet your needs, an elegant way to respond to something, an elegant way to fix something, an elegant way to see what is troubling you so that you can come up with a repair. You can't fix anything unless you know what it is. And check-ins are ways for you to see just where you are. And one of the things that you'll find, hopefully you know by now, whether it be a slip, as we're talking about in this session, or anything else that's not necessarily working for you, it happens in steps. Things break in steps. So if you can catch the steps, you can catch things before they break. And that's one of the purposes of check-in. Again, it's a way of you constantly being aware of exactly where you are. And the more awareness that you have of exactly where you are, coupled with tools, the more stronger your everyday life is going to be, and the more stronger your navigation through the recovery process will be. Again, recovery is a muscle. I think saying it's a muscle is actually a disservice to muscle, because it's not one muscle. It's actually a series of muscles. The muscle of putting the phone down, the muscle of resistance, the muscle of planning, and so on and so forth. It's a series of muscles that have to get strengthened. The muscle of reflecting and bouncing to a boundary, the muscle of applying a boundary wherever you see something is not working for you. And one of the things that we know that happens all too often with people, especially in the periods of slips, because slips can actually be a defining moment. They can define that. Often, almost always, they're an alleged defining moment. Oh, I'm gonna, so they're often an alleged defining moment. But they really can be a defining moment when people start to use these slips as a data resource, because that's what they are. They show you what's missing. But what happens is, instead of using it as a data procuring process, what we do is we use it as a methodology or a vehicle, as a way of beating ourselves up. And one of the ways that we do it is it's just a simple default, which a default and a defect, is we tend to put a spotlight every time we make an error or something doesn't go the way that we want it to go, rather than to see what it was that we were missing and adjust what it is that was missing, so that the next time around it gets better. Instead of doing all of that, looking at the situation, using the situation for data for improvement, we just beat ourselves up with a whole bunch of bad. And then along the way, whenever we do something that is like a step to make us get closer to our ultimate destination, we have a tendency to kind of dim the light on all of our progress and all of our successes and all of our achievements. So we keep reminding ourselves about our mistakes, and then we ignore ourselves about our victories. And so this stuff feeds this stuff. Watch this. And this stuff feeds this stuff. So again, whatever you're feeding is growing. So if you're sitting there dwelling on what's bad and not dwelling on what you can repair, it just gets worse. If you sat there and dwelled on what's good and what you can repair, it gets better. And that's just another picture of what we do there in the same situation. You just dim it, spotlight it, spotlight it, spotlight it, spotlight it, spotlight it, spotlight all the negative, and then you put a dimming light on the positive, where basically this needs to be brightened with the spotlight constantly. This is the essence of the recovery process. And the first phase, if you will, is what a lot of what we're doing here. The second phase, this is the foundation of your addiction. So you will have to go and you will have to deal with whatever kind of wounds you have, whatever kind of trauma you have. There's methodologies. Go see your pastor. That you can go on and on and on of how you can deal with that. I'm not dealing with that here. We deal with this. We deal with a little bit of that. But you need to deal with whatever kind of stuff that you have. You know, what did you have some kind of family disruption earlier in life? Did you have divorce situations? There's something that you need to heal from. And that's part of this process. And that's really the hardest part of the process, actually. And that's why people don't even want to do this stuff, because then they get into this stuff. And then once we get all of this toxicity dealt with, then we can get back to what we were here to do anyway, which is to live intentionally, to live a life on purpose, to live a life where we're contributing and giving something to the society and the world that only we can give. Each and every one of us has some unique gift that only we can give the planet. And whether we do it or not, that's two different things. But each and every one of us has some type of calling that's specifically for us, and only we can provide it. Back to, basics. It's always basics, 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 basics. You can't have a porn addiction in the 21st century without having a phone problem, without not having any supremacy over your phone. Oh, this picture's kind of interesting because it shows a cracked up phone, which is a phone that's overused. It's used randomly. It's used all the time. It's so unconscious of a process that it's dropped many times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that's because no one really educated us about our phone. No one. And if you sit back right now, I've talked more in an educational context about proper use of your phone than anybody in your entire life. And that's not right. No one teaches us how to use the phone. No one teaches us that it's a toy. No one teaches us phone etiquette. No one teaches us anything about how to use the phone. It's just something that somehow, oh, here's this phone. So it isn't your fault. I've used that term in slides and stuff before. It isn't your fault, but we have been conditioned, and no one taught us how to use our phone as a toy, and how useful that our phone is, and how our phone can actually be hijacked, and the phone can actually use us versus us using the phone. So we have a phone problem. I hate to beat you upside the head with telling you and reminding you and saying this over and over again, but I know that if a person's addicted and they're getting all those neurochemicals, they don't think as well as they could. And that's not an insult. It's just a fact. It's a fact, something that I discovered. And they think that they can actually do something like eradicate a pornography addiction on their own script and their own protocol. I know people think that they can do it that way because of the cognitive distortions that come with the addiction. But no, you can't really do it that way. As I said, I'm only going to teach you, a bulk of the behavior stuff, but there's stuff that you still need to learn. And some of the greater teachers will tell you, sobriety is not even enough. Sobriety is just the beginning. Not doing porn, that's just the beginning. There's a lot more work in your life that you need to do. And that's why it's so, I don't know if I'd say funny, but it's like ridiculous watching people try to not do porn on their own without any kind of tools. I mean, by now, I think that you can understand how ridiculous that it is because of the fact you've spent hours upon hours, and there's a reversal process that has to be done deliberately and intentionally, and it can't be done by just, I got day one. I'm gonna not do this all day and all. That strategy is not gonna work because of the complicated matter that we're actually dealing with, and because in its simplest form, if you want to really, people like to make things simple. The simple thing about porn addiction recovery is this: you have to grow up and become a different person than you are that does the porn. And so the recovery process is the process of growing up and creating a new identity so that you become a different person, not a person that is fighting urges, but a person who actually doesn't have urges at all. And that's what the recovery process is about. It's about step by step doing that. So yeah, the urges are high now. If you were, I'm not going to do this today. Oh yeah, you're going to have a high. Of course you are. Because you're a person that does that. And when you condition yourself and become a person who doesn't do pornography, you won't have the urges. You won't be pulled. You won't be distracted. Because you'll be on purpose. And one of the ways that you get on purpose is how you start your morning and what you do. And so I've said it before and I said it over and over again. Start not using your phone first thing in the day. Start with not using it until at least 15 minutes that you're in the day. And then get it up to about an hour. You got an hour worth of purposeful stuff to do in your life before you get on somebody else's script with the phone. And the thing is like I tell people all the time, especially if somebody was addicted, you know, what I just said appears like, oh, he's trying to tell me what to do. He's trying to tell me when to put my phone in my hand. He's not going to tell me what I'm going to do with my phone. It's my phone. And see, that's why we have problems. That's why you have problems, because you're interpreting me suggesting something that's going to make you healthy as me telling you what to do. And so as long as I'm telling you what to do, it's pretty easy to reject, and I would reject it too. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you what best practices are. So if you want to engage with best practices, everything that we're talking about is best practices. If you're worried about somebody telling you what to do, you might want to look at how much the pornography industry tells you what to do. one of the strengths that you're going to have in this pursuit, we've talked about it before, and I don't know if you've actually stopped and asked yourself, well, why do you want to be porn free? Why do you want the lifestyle that I have or others have? Why do you want it? And that your why needs to not necessarily be about somebody. You can't do this for your wife. She can be part of it. You can't do it for your girlfriend. She can be part of it. You have to do it for yourself. You have to have a why that matters. Like I said, my why was that it was inconsistent with who I am, and it was destructive. And I no longer want to be destructive to myself in the way that I am. And I want to eradicate this behavior so that I can help other people, because I'd like to contribute in a positive way to other people's lives. That's my why. So when you develop a strong enough why that's clear and not somebody else's, but it's yours, the why has a tremendous amount of power. And I talked about it before. I'll talk about it over and over again. We'll do a session probably about things that you should have and tools that you should have and what the tools are. And one of the tools that I say over and over again is the first aid kit. And one of the things that's in your first aid kit is your why list. You have a whole bunch of positive stuff in your first aid kit. You have pictures of yourself in the victory stage, who you want to be in your first aid kit. This is what you're working on. And what we're working on right here today is recovering from after you act out. Because what we're actually going to do today in a mechanical way is we're going to take number 5 off. Number 5 really is going to be off the table. It's going to be out of there. We're actually going to throw this in the trash can, because we're going to teach you how not to do it the way that you've been doing it. So your addictive cycle will be forever altered after today, because we're taking this out. This is the methodology that people use in the regular world, and it doesn't really work so well. It just doesn't work because it doesn't work. And that's an example of not controlling the phone, that I forgot to turn the phone on do not disturb before a conference began. But that's fine. You need to learn how to manage your phone in every respect, like that. Turn the ringer off so that you can do your work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And as you can see, no one does this thing perfect, man. Progress over perfection. Progress over perfection. Nothing changes until something changes, and that something is you. So we come back to, why are you here? One of the reasons is trauma and your emotional state of the past. And things happen in the present that trigger you in the moment. And when you're triggered in the moment, the strength of that trigger comes from something that happened in the past. Something that's unresolved that happened in the past gives you the charge in this moment when you're triggered. So when you resolve something that happened in the past and you have a trigger in the moment, the intensity of that trigger is diminished. See, the trigger puts you in either a hypostimulation or a hyperstimulation. The triggers tend to always be there. The intensity of the trigger is modified through the work that you do. do the healing work that you ultimately do. All right. Once again, things that interfere the healing is all this spotlighting of the bad. That just makes it worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. When something bad happens, what do? The phone just went off in the middle of a presentation. Rather than call myself a bunch of names, put that on my checklist before I even hit the record button. Is the phone off? Put that on a list right in front of me. Is the phone off? That's how you do stuff different. And that's the way you have to learn how to respond to life. Instead of calling yourself a whole bunch of names, what are you going to do differently? And then when you come up with a good idea, like I said, put that on my checklist, acknowledge it. Yeah, now I can eliminate that. That would never happen again. If that's on a checklist before I record, the phone will never ring again without me wanting it to ring again. That was my daughter who called, by the way. And that comes from running the play, which is not the strategy that you're doing right now. Again, using the example of a phone going off when I'm doing a presentation, to me, that's a no-no. To you, I think it's a no-no too. What did I do? I just went on about my business, and yeah, I didn't alter the phone. I didn't alter the phone because I haven't really touched the phone yet today. Instant replay, man. Run the play. What happened? Run the play, the most recent play, and then, run the whole series of downs using a football example. And always remember, the last play is not your last play. Sometimes we act like it's all or nothing, like that's it. And I want you to really learn to be present. It's not all or nothing. If you made a mistake, that doesn't blow the whole day. It blows the whole day when your mind gets blown, when you give up. But just because you made a mistake, it doesn't mean you blew the whole day. It means you need to shift your course and change your direction. And so we're going to have a language change right now. And the language change is, why don't you start calling your so-called relapse a slip? Because that's what it really is. And let me just really simply define what these two are in real life. I know people use this word to identify when someone acts out all the time. This is the common word that's used. But many times it's really a slip. But when you call it a relapse is almost like an institution. It's something that people put a lot into. It's something that people try to run from. It's something that people have given a bad name. And it really does deserve a bad name. But it's really something that you should take out of your vocabulary. One, again, because it causes a whole lot of fear. Two, again, it's something that you're running from. Three, I think it's a cognitive distortion because you might not even be relapsing. Because to me, the definition of a relapse is, okay, I've given up. I don't care. I'm not here to do anything anymore. It doesn't matter. I'm throwing the towel in. That's a relapse. A slip is, some porn came my way and I didn't throw it away like dog dirt. And then I went in and indulged in some more porn, and then I caught myself, and then I feel real terrible about it. That's a slip. A relapse is, again, something happened, and then I'm up to day 34, and somebody sent me some porn, and then all of a sudden, I'll try it again in a year. That's a relapse. A slip, something happened, you lost your balance, you lost your compass, you got off this path a little bit, and you got yourself back on. And if you are actively in a recovery program, you're not going to relapse anymore because of the fact that, like I said, relapse is really a throw in the towel. So that's why you shouldn't even be using that word anymore. So a slip, let's see, it's a brief, unplanned return caused by unforeseen temptation. It's kind of what it is. And again, relapse is deliberate, sustained return. Nothing changes if nothing changes. So start with changing your language and stop magnifying the bad and dimming the positive. That's one change that you can make. One of the things that we know, and it happens through the uninformed recovery process, and it's actually one of the ways that people make themselves more addicted when they don't have any skills, is the guilt shame cycle. And so they feel guilty about something, they feel guilty continuously, and then that becomes shame. They douse themselves with shame, and it really makes people uncomfortable. It really makes people feel terrible. And then on top of that, what do? They go to their most familiar coping strategy, which is pornography, and then they rinse and repeat. And that's part of the addictive shame cycle that people are unaware of. And that's one of the things that keeps them trapped, is they don't have a strategy to quit porn, but they're trying to quit porn. And then it doesn't work, because it doesn't work like 99% of the time without a strategy and without building the muscles. So it doesn't work. And then they start beating themselves up with a whole bunch of shame, to the extent that they make themselves terrible. And then they hypo-stimulate themselves and feel like terrible. And then they self-soothe. So one of the things that I would encourage you to not do is to not do any of this and to stop this. So let's talk about this for a second. About 40 years ago, I guess, I was fortunate enough to have some good teachers, and they told me what happens with guilt. And the interesting thing about guilt is only good people and decent people experience guilt. And so what happens is you make a mistake, and think of this box think of this box as something that you fill, this blue box here. You make a mistake. Oh, I'm terrible. I'm a bad person. I'm no good. You feel bad. To an extent. Who knows what that amount is, but there's a certain amount, and it depends what the thing is. And after you feel that guilt, somehow, because you filled this canal or channel or balloon or box with guilt, it's almost like once you've experienced a certain amount of guilt, boom, it goes away. You don't feel guilty, and you move on to the next thing. But what happened through that process is the only thing you did was you made a mistake and you felt terrible for an extended period of time, and then you get to repeat it, because of the fact that that's how the enemy of guilt works. You feel it for a while, and then after you felt it for a while, it goes away, because you felt enough guilt that you get to maintain that you're a decent person. But here's the problem when guilt continuously gets felt over and over and over again. is that it actually transforms itself into shame. And so this is the conversation that somebody has with themselves with guilt. Oh, I made a mistake. I made a mistake. I made a mistake. And all that chatter like that, and they fill up the space as we talked about with feeling bad. But see, on the shame side, it's not that I made a mistake. It's that I am a mistake. And then you start attacking yourself versus attacking the behavior, which is what needs to be attacked, which needs to be changed. And these are some of the things that the lie of shame is I'm all alone in this. If they knew, they'd leave. I'm defined by my past. I deserve judgment. All this language that just keeps you stuck, which is versus, again, what did you do? How can you change it? How can you make it better? Rather than sitting here and letting this develop into this. And so the truth about recovery is that you have to be vulnerable. It's best done in communities. See, we'll talk about communities in the last session. And again, here's that word, identity. You're going to have an identity shift, period. And this is a time for grace, a time for you to give yourself grace, a time for you to give yourself forgiveness and not beat yourself up through the process. This is the shame cycle. Something triggers you, you start attacking your identity, you feel pain. This is where you like to run and numb yourself. And then as a result of that, you actually have increased shame. So it continuously stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks itself. Yeah. Kind of interesting, isn't it? And then when I was looking at this chart, it reminded me of something which you've seen before. Even today, I think that. And so the shame cycle is right there. It shows up right there. And this is when you get triggered, and this is that past shame that you're allowed to get activated. Right there. Starting to feel uncomfortable right there. So you get it here, boom, you act out, and you get it here, boom. So there's two doses of shame that come with this cycle. Just saying. So if you take out shame, you're taking out a lot of this cycle, my friend. Cycle doesn't have starting to lose. And then you take out acting out, there is no cycle, you see? No more self-hatred. That's a good start because love is a power. And loving yourself is a tremendous power. Matter of fact, recovery is it's the greatest gift of self-love that you can give yourself. Think about that for a second. The greatest gift of self-love that you can give yourself is recovery. And it starts by asking God to grant you the serenity to change the things, to accept the things you cannot change, to accept reality, and to have the courage to change the things that you can. And this addiction you can change. Part of that courage is learning what it is that you need to learn. Generally, learning what it is that you need to learn about yourself, because this is a process of learning. And the wisdom to know the difference between what you can do and what you can't do. And the truth of the matter is what you can do is usually way much more than you think you can do. Shame hides in your past. It seeps into your present, and it's fueled by silence and secrecy. You're not the only one struggling. You aren't. But in the context of this is a journey that you've been on by yourself. You got on the experiment by yourself. You do PMOs by yourself. A lot of this going on is something that you've done by yourself. So I know looking at other people, helps in the process of you knowing that you're not the only one and so on and so forth. But I really want you to know that this is a very unique journey, and it is a journey of getting better. And through the whole journey, what's going on with somebody else, that doesn't matter. What somebody else did, that don't matter. What somebody else's story is, that doesn't matter. I mean, those are facts. They can be helpful. But to base your recovery and make it matter what somebody else did or what somebody else does, I see these questions sometimes on the forums. How long did it take you to do X? It doesn't matter how long it takes you. How did look, it takes as long as it takes, and that's how long it takes. But what you can easily answer for yourself is the more that you put into this process, since the mindset's not going to change. The addict mindset is going to be here even after you do porn. So some of the things that the addict wants to do or does, they don't totally go away. They just get managed better, actually, because there's some stuff that I find myself doing here or there that aren't like red behaviors or even yellow behaviors for that matter, but they are things that an addict would do. Sometimes certain impatient behaviors that I find myself in. And so cognitive distortions is just something that we're constantly in the pursuit of challenging every day, because we lie to ourselves and we deny ourselves. And a lot of why we're here is because of lies and cognitive distortions. And cognitive distortions and lies will keep us from doing the things that we need to do to get better. Because it's very easy to say, well, why should I sit here and listen to all this when I can just try to recover on my own and do what I was doing? That's a cognitive distortion. The reason, why would you even think about doing that when you've already proven to yourself what you didn't work? You've already proven that's not even an issue up for debate. What you did hasn't worked. If it worked, we wouldn't be talking. So to challenge anything that anybody's saying, it's a cognitive distortion. And once again, the slip happened last week, by the way. The slip didn't happen just now. So you need to learn how to use the slip as a data, to use the slip as something that's telling you something. And really, at the end of the day, the slip tells us that what we were doing wasn't enough. So it's just telling us we need to add more to whatever it is we're doing. Instead of all that beating up of ourselves, let's look at this like a scientific project and explore what it is that we need to do different. Because the slip is just feedback. So the first thing that you need to do is remember that stop sign and stop. Just stop. That's the first way to get out of this hole. Stop. 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 And it doesn't matter how long it takes you to wake up and just say stop, because it doesn't matter. At some point in time, you're going to stop. So the quickest you can get to stop, the best. So after you stop, then change everything. Change the environment, change the temperature, change your physiology, change everything. Change the music, change the mood, change everything. Change the atmosphere. That's the first steps. Change it. As soon as you catch yourself, change it. One of the things you want to take out of your head is that all or nothing thinking, which comes from using that word blanket. So again, you get in a deep situation and you're already starting to slide down the slope, and then you use the word blanket. And like I said, blanket, nothing good comes after blanket, and you go all the way down the chute. You've got to learn the muscle of stopping, because it's in that stopping that you can get to the point where you're really at your last slip or your last relapse. And the only way that you get to your last slip or your last relapse is somewhere along the line you have learned relapse or slip recovery skills. And that's really what we're talking about, recovery in a recovery. Because this is like when you relapse, when you go through that, that's actually, that's a wound. That's a new wound. And so you really need to repair yourself, which is why this shame cycle is so backwards, because you need to repair yourself, but yet we pulled out another knife. So these are some things that help you with your psychological firewall. Protect your identity, cognitive reframing, and micro resets. This is the thing that we're missing, micro resets. And you're going to find every time there's a relapse or a slip, there's a pattern. And eventually you'll recognize what the pattern is. And it'll always come down to something small. I can tell you it'll come down to something small. It'll come down to, I needed to use my phone for an alarm clock. I had to do it. Be careful about what you had to do or what you have to do, because you might not have to do it, but you tell yourself you have to do it. Cognitive distortion that gets you into trouble. After you stop everything, after you reset everything, after you take a check of your environment, after you look at the truth versus shaming yourself, make some changes in your electronics. Take your electronics away from yourself. Change your passwords. Turn on your filters. Block some sites. Some of those sites are on your phone and they're apps. Get rid of the app. Change the password on your apps. Change passwords on phones. One of the things that I suggest that you do is a simple tool. Bring recovery words into your passwords. I'm not going to use any of those words, but recovery words. And don't use negative words or negative sayings as passwords. I'm not going to FAP, or I'm not going to whatever. No. That's not positive. Don't use the word that you're trying to avoid to help you. Use something to the extent of, I live healthy 145, something of that nature. That's something to remind you, something to activate you every time you use your password. See, these are little things that you can put in place that help you, the same way the little things are hurting you, like the algorithms of some of the sites that you're going to and how they're escalating you. After the relapse, again, or slip, what is the trigger? Notice what the trigger is. And then, this is, again, an area for your journal and an area for your notebook. What happened on these relapses? What are the stuff that you see? What was the trigger? How did you respond to the trigger? How can you respond better next time? And I like to overdo it. So I'm not looking for like one answer to a problem. Like, how can I respond better next time? I'm actually looking personally. Give me 4 ways that I can respond different and better next time. Not like, how can I respond better? That's just one. Give me 4 so that I can forget 2, and then, 2 will come up unconsciously. That's how you do this journey. You give yourself, it's like every tool that you possibly can. Not that you're going to use them, but that you have them. So it doesn't matter what situation comes up. See, that's where the confidence comes from. When you have a toolbox for everything, you're not concerned with anything. It's a pretty good phrase that just came out of the back pocket there. But yeah, we've talked about it before. Your journal is going to be your buddy, because anything that's worth doing in your life is worth recording. And the journal is your way of keeping a record, and it's your way of seeing the patterns. And once you reveal the patterns, then you can come up with strategies to prevent them from continuously beating them. What happens is you find yourself in an acting out stage over and over again, and you don't know how you got there. And then once you understand how you got there, sometimes people make that like important or a big deal, when in fact that's nice knowing, but doing and putting a plan in place is what matters. So you pay attention and learn what's going on and know what's going on, and that's nice. And then you do something with what it is that you learned. One of the first things that you can also do if you ever had a slip is to do a check-in, like we talked about earlier. Check in with yourself. How do you feel? What do you need? How's your relationship? What do you want? What are you thinking about doing? Because that's showing you exactly where you are, and you need data to know where you are. As well, one of the things that you can almost guarantee is that if you had a slip or a relapse, you probably had a deficit in some other area. And one of the deficits is just the way you're breathing, because people stress out. So maybe you might want to regulate yourself by breathing right. Another thing that you might find by paying attention is the dehydration factor and the nutrition factor. You fell to halts. And then another thing, you can look this up, the circadian cycle. Your body has a cycle that's in alignment with the sun and the moon, shall we say. And certain things happen in your body at certain times during the day, whether you're aware of it or not. And depending on when you go to sleep and how you sleep, that could throw that rhythm off. And by throwing that rhythm off, you're throwing your whole physiology off. And that could be an area to look at. Do a Google search. You have a phone. That's the tool of greatness. But this is an area that if you look at the pictures off of a Google search in this area, it will reveal how important this is. Because your body does things at certain times. I'm not going to do it for you. If you look, you will find that's an eye-opening an eye-opening view, and you will see how important it is to have regular sleeping times, regular eating times, regular things in your life that you do, because your body does certain things at certain times. And when you're not fighting your body, then your body can work for you. When you're fighting your body has a way of working against you. We talked about these things already. Get out of there, change the passwords, hand your phone over to somebody else. But just know, whenever you're handing your phone over to somebody else, because it is a phone problem, and I appreciate and I respect it, and I'm all good with it, and I'm happy that you're at least doing that. But here's what I want you to know. When you do this, you're not teaching yourself how to handle your device and do your own cooling off. But it is a start of you handing it over to somebody else. My assistant did this one by accident, so you just act like you didn't see this, because we don't do streaks around here. But yeah, be honest with yourself about what's going on so that you can actually explore and adjust and redo. And as I said earlier, your slip or your relapse is going to tell you what's missing and what action you need to take. It's always guiding you to the action that you need to take. It's always guiding you to that. And the shame cycle wants to guide you to this. And the cognitive distortions want to guide you to this. Again, when you have a situation like a relapse or a situation that you don't like, you don't have an undesired situation. You don't have time for self-pity, because that's never going to fix it. There's an action that's going to fix it. Some action. Some action is not always action on your part. Some action is people can help you. But action cures most stuff. Self-pity makes most stuff worse. Same stuff. Leave the environment. Shut the windows down. Open the door to your environment so you're not in secrecy. Change your environment. We talked about it before. Your screen should not be hidden. People should be able to walk into your environment, whether it be your office or your room, and they should be able to walk in your office without you knowing it and seeing what's on your screen. And the reason why, if your environment is such that people can't walk in your environment and see your screen, is because you did that on purpose so that you can hide what it is you're doing. So that's a good thing to change now. But if you think little things like getting a blocker or putting your environment so that everybody can see your screen, if you think that you're just going to do one or two of the, I'll just do that. I'll just put my screen out. I'll just get a blocker. No, that's not going to do it. The way that you can guarantee that you will not be a victim of your own demise over and over and over and over and over again is because you do everything. One of the things you like to do is you like to hide. So when you're looking for accountability, when you find you're in those hot moments, when you find you need a hand, when you find you need some help from somebody, make a phone call and not a text. Because, see, you can hide in a text. A text doesn't show how you feel, doesn't show your attitude. People can't really tell. You know, you can kind of fake how you're doing, and a whole bunch of clownery you can do with the text. So just call people. That's how you really make contact. You can connect with people by text, but real contact will happen through real contact. You should have a accountability partner, and your accountability partner, what's best? Somebody's got to be on a different side. But yeah, the best practice is to have an accountability partner that has more authority over this subject than you do. Not that he knows more, but he has more authority over himself than you. That's the accountability partner. You don't want an accountability partner that's struggling 20 times more than you. That's all right. You can be an accountability partner to him, but that's not a positive accountability partner for you. The accountability partner for you is somebody that's more advanced in their recovery than you. If they're less advanced, then you can be their accountability partner. So tracking everything. Again, I don't know why this streak evaluations here. Track it all and come up with a new 3-step recovery sequence that you're going to do if you relapse. What are you going to do? Boom, 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 boom. 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 Okay? Mine is, if it's, I don't have a relapse, but if it shows up, I just hit the X. Bye, see ya. I'm gone. Next. That's what I do when porn shows up. I don't know what yours is, but you got to have a strategy. You've got to have a relapse protocol. This happened. What are you going to do? Every time there's a relapse or a slip or something of that nature, something has got to change. This is the difference between hoping that you can quit porn and doing recovery. Is that this is a project. And so every time you get data, every time, it's not like it's done. It's not like it's random and we ignore. Every time, if you find a slip, if you find a gap, every time, and this is not just for this is for everything. Every time you find a gap, what is the boundary I can put in place? What is it I can do before it happens so that it doesn't happen? Is there a boundary that I can put in place? Because really, if you put a boundary in place, a real boundary, that can prevent it will never, ever, 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 ever happen again. Just like my phone went off a couple minutes ago. If I put the boundary up on the wall in front of my face to check the phone every time, and then to check the phone on the camera so that when the camera gets exposed at the same time, check the phone. You see what I'm saying? If that was my protocol, that's going to guarantee that I'm not doing a presentation in this desk that I'm going to be distracted with a phone call. It has to be that level of sophistication or intentionality about everything. And that's because your recovery matters. This isn't a game. If you don't stop, then you're going to destroy a relationship. And it can just escalate from there. We've talked about it before. I'm not going to talk about it again. It can escalate into some very extremely ugly places. And it will escalate at some level, no matter what. It always escalates. And the reason why it escalates, as we explained earlier, is because it's toxic behavior. And your body, your physiology, your spirit, and your mind knows that it's toxic. So your body, your spirit, and your mind puts up walls. And you want to charge from it like you got before. So to compensate for what your body has done, the person escalates. And it's a rinse and repeat process because your body catches up. And then the person adds more. and your body catches up and the person adds more. That's why it always escalates. As I said before, if you listen to what I just explained, the escalation doesn't happen in like big jumps. It happens in pieces. I also have said over and over again that this process, in its simplistic form, it's a process of reversal. Everything that you do to feed your addiction, you do the exact opposite. And so as you've been feeding your shame in pieces and pieces and pieces to give yourself another reason to self-soothe, what you do is you gain small wins. And that's because you learn something from something. You put up a new boundary. You take a new step. You pick up a book and read a chapter. Maybe that's something you hadn't done in a while. So it's small wins versus small doses of shame and guilt and beat up and calling yourself names and all that other stuff. And at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, why do you do it? It's an unhealthy way of meeting needs. We all have needs. Tony Robbins says that we have 6 human needs: the need of certainty, the need of uncertainty, the need of variety, the need of connection, the need of growth, the need of contribution. Those are our basic needs, the need of connection as well, if I didn't say that one. And so this is a way to meet needs. This is a way that you train yourself to meet needs. This is a way that you meet the needs of meaning and purpose, connection and belonging. This is a way that this is your stress management techniques, your yoga. Yep. Unhealthy way of meeting needs. And compulsive, all this, you already know. I'm not going to read that. And so the needs are here. So the goal is not to eliminate the need, because the need ain't going away. The goal is to meet the need in a way that's sustainable. And the way that you learn how to meet the needs in a sustainable way is you get out of the comfort zone, step into the fear zone, learn some new stuff. After you learn some new stuff and put it into place, you grow. And you don't grow any other way than to step out of what's comfortable into the fear zone and take in new knowledge and work it a little bit, and then it grows. The only reason why you won't do that is because of the cognitive distortions. Oh, that's not important. Oh, I don't need to know that stuff. Oh, I don't need that. And what you'll find always after a relapse or a slip is that a person hasn't been paying attention to dangerous people, dangerous places, or dangerous things. They just have not been paying attention to that. The slide pretty much says it. You can read faster than I can ever talk. But again, they weren't paying attention to being hungry. They weren't paying it. You got to catch yourself when you're lying to yourself. They browsing in the phone aimlessly. Don't browse anymore aimlessly. I said a long time ago that in my early days, I'd have cards by my computer. I'd have a card, 3x5 card wrapped around my phone with the simple phrase, why? Why do I need to put this in my hand? And it's by becoming more consciously aware of that I could begin to have some kind of strategy to avoid going into those dangerous areas. Again, dangerous areas, Facebook, Instagram, all the various forms of social media. These always show up as you look back in your past or last week or something of that nature. You need to know who the dangerous people are in your life and avoid them. You don't, do you avoid them 100%? Some of those people, it's not fair to avoid them 100% because you're related to them and they have other connections in your life. So avoiding them 100% is not necessarily an option. What is an option is that you can minimize the amount of time that you spend with those people. That's something that you can do. And just as a reflex in the recovery slip response, what safe, supportive people, places, and things can I attach myself to right now? Because you want to think of the relapse kind of as like a mini cycle, a mini addiction cycle, a mini loop. And so one of the fastest ways to get off the loop is, again, getting out of the loop and by getting to the pure things. So by just jumping into safe and supported environments, things, and around safe people, it allows you to change. You need to understand the relapse chain, the slip chain. There's a pattern. There's a way that it shows up. Listen to how you act. Listen to how you behave. Something happens, then something happens, then something happens, then something happens, then something happens. Pay attention. Write that stuff down. And then take out the somethings, and you find that it doesn't happen anymore. There's waves to this. You're going to have cravings. They come in waves. Here's what you need to know. They don't last forever. They don't. The cravings do not last forever. Here's a tool. This is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is a tool right before you do something that maybe you might not want to do. I like this tool, and this is a strong tool. This is a phenomenal tool. I almost hate to tell people good tools like this because I don't want them to say, oh, I got this tool, I don't need to learn anymore. But this tool will actually change urges if you actually do it. And that is wherever you are and you're going craving crazy, just look at 5 things and focus on them. Focus on them. Don't blink. Look at 5 things that are around you. I'm looking at a calculator, keyboard, staple, coffee cup, and a keyboard, as well as a speaker and a Yeti cup. And then, what can I feel? I can feel the mouse. I can feel my phone holder. I can feel this cup of coffee. I can feel the stapler. So I've touched things. I'm engaging my senses. Okay, 3 things I can hear. I can hear myself right now. I can hear the fan blowing. I can hear birds in the background. Things I can smell. Smell that coffee. That's about it. What can I taste? Well, I can taste the coffee. By you going through that little exercise right there, as silly as that may seem, that changes my consciousness because it caused me to go into each one of my senses and deal with my brain and my senses. And as a result of that, there was a small change that happened. That's enough change to get some air and then to leave the environment. Is the urge coming back if there was an urge? Yeah, it would come back. Because you have to do one thing and then one thing and then another thing. You almost have to stack 3 things on top of each other to keep the urge away. And then if 3 things don't work, then stack 4 things. If 4 things don't work, then stack 5 things. If 5 things don't work, stack 6 things. In other words, you just keep on stacking and stacking until you get the result. And that's really what this recovery process is about. It's kind of, it causes you to really activate something that was activated in the first major achievement in your life, which was walking. And if you go back in time or use your own child as an example, you'll see that, you fell, you kept on getting back up, you fell, you almost didn't get it, you almost got it, you almost got it, and then eventually you walked. And the reason why that happened is because you kept on trying until you eventually got it. One reason you had people to encourage you, like your parents, but the bottom line is you tried until you kept changing your approach until. And if you'd use that same approach to this or anything else in your life, you will always achieve the result that you want by just working it until. And if you decide on this, that I will continuous gain new knowledge. I will listen to every podcast that I possibly can listen to. I will look at every video that I possibly can look at. I will write every situation in my journal that I possibly can write. And I will do these things and more until I become pornography free in life. Anybody that does that really is going to succeed, because that's what it takes to succeed. And everybody that keeps on, I can't, that's because you don't do everything possible to eradicate the behavior. Everything possible, and give yourself the time to allow everything possible to catch up with you. The same way the addiction caught up with you. It caught up with you because you repetitively did things, and it eventually caught up with you. So getting free is doing things continuously, and they eventually catch up with you. I don't know how long it takes. And that's why the counting of days is silly. Just do the work. Do what you're supposed to do. Grow into become a person that not only controls his behavior, but you have no desire whatsoever for toxic behavior at all. You need to heal the reward system. And part of the reward system is actually making achievements. And that's why that's why people do the counting of days in the first place. Because they don't have any reason to reward themselves, so they come up with a phony way to reward themselves. Reward yourself because you did hard work, and just acknowledge yourself for the hard work. Don't make it a big deal. Don't make it reward to the extent that it becomes entitlement. But it's okay to reward yourself when you see yourself making progress, real progress. That's not how many days that you have. It's what did you do in the day. Real progress is when you catch your triggers and you write it down. Real progress is when you can articulate a situation. I almost did this, but I did this, and I did this, and I did that, and I did this, and I felt this way. And there you go, that big why there. So if you don't have a why, a lot of the hows are not going to show up. When you get a big enough why, and why is personal, the hows will show themselves up. So I think I'm done. Thank goodness. Yeah, we're done. So in closing, what is this about? It's about running the play. It's about honestly running the play and learning from what happens. Because the slip can be the day that you actually got the message that you were supposed to get a long time ago. But it's through responding to the slip effectively that you get the results. I'll tell you a little story that I tell people all the time. If you look back in 2016, Golden State Warriors against the Cleveland Cavaliers. It was game 3. Golden State had lost, and Golden State was down 2-1. And in the press conference, I was looking at the players and the coaches, and they just looked too happy for people that had just lost the game. And it was just something that it bothered my spirit. One, because I trusted the coach and I trusted the players that they wouldn't go on some kind of mission to jive me, for lack of a better term. And they seemed like they were too happy having lost the game. And I didn't feel that these guys were the kind of guys that would fake feeling good and they lost the game. And it almost appeared like they were faking feeling not bothered about losing the game and being behind. And they had lost the game. So I'm telling you that to tell you this. The reason why they were smiling was because in the game that they lost, the light came on. And they saw how they were going to win the championship. Now, I didn't know that. All I saw was their faces. To make the story short, they didn't lose another game that series. And the series ended up 4-2. They won the rest, the next 3 games. And the point was, at your defeat, you may be given the information that you need to take the championship. But as long as you're in shame and beating yourself up and not running the play, you'll never see what they saw. And in their case, just as if you like basketball, what they saw was that the star player of a team could not carry the team the whole championship, and the star player was tired anyway, as most players are in the NBA Finals. It's very tiring for those players. That's a dynamic of the NBA Finals. But yeah, I always use that metaphor because that's the greatest. That was a real life metaphor of progress over perfection, and it's in the moments of defeat that the information for total victory is there. You just have to look at it. So again, the slip is an opportunity for you to find out what it is that you're missing, what it is that you need, and what steps are you not taking, and what steps are you taking. And you have no time to feel bad. And feeling bad is a behavior pattern and or strategy that you've used, and it needs to be replaced with action. Instead of feeling bad about how something went wrong. It's what is the action that I need to take? Because it's always going to come down to an action. If you ever have a problem, it's always going to come down to an effective action that you need to take. And I use that word effective on purpose because it's not about an action. That's how you mess stuff up, by just taking an action and react. You got to take actions that are deliberate. That's what it takes to win the game. So with that, we'll see you on the next one. And just remember, the opposite of addiction is connection. God bless each and every one of you. And remember to drive with care and walk with caution.